If you're not getting it right at the neck, you're going to have a lot of work in front of you. So starting right here, it's very important. Get it right at the top before you do anything else. Stay tuned. Hey subscribers, Shawnee's here, and as I said earlier in my previous video, I was going to start on a series of videos focused on fitting. Now, to sew garments, there's two things. One, you got to know how to sew. Two, you got to know how to fit. If you're making pajamas, a robe, you might not have to do any type of fitting, but if you want to make dresses, if you want to make nice blouses, slacks, jeans, fitting is very important. There's three parts to fitting. The first is the length, top to bottom. The second is the width, side to side. And the third is the depth, front to back. So you focused on one thing first. First thing is the length from top down. Because if you don't get the length right and you skip the length, say you forget, don't do the length, and you go right into width. So you're going to work on, is there enough to cover my bust? Is there enough to cover my belly? Is there enough to cover my hips? You can do all that work and then you put it on and you realize, you know what? My shoulder's not right. I got a lot. Either it's the garment is sticking up, it's not touching my neck, or there's wrinkles here because it's around my neck and I can't really move. Then you go to fit the shoulders and now everything else is off. Your bust, which was right here, and you had it right, now your bust might go up a little bit, and now you might have to move it down. Or say you're like, okay, the bust is good, but I didn't fit my hips. So now you're fitting your hips, but you forgot to do the belly. So there's an order to doing these fittings. So the first one I want to talk about is your neck. So if you were doing a fitting lesson with me, I'd have you wear a leotard top and a loose fitting pants, and then I would also have these dots. You can get these if you're yourself. These are Avery dots, and I would take these dots because we need to put these dots in 4 different places for the neck. But you also want to have a chain, a nice thin chain. So here's a thick chain. Look, it's a sewing machine. The heavens about for me. So thin chain. Is the side is right, but for good fitting, the locations you want, where this chain is fitting right here, this is not the spot. So if you feel around your neck and you come down and you got this little divot right here, that's the part that you want to focus on. That's where you want that dot to go, or that's where you want your necklace to fit. So I would actually take my necklace and I would adjust it, or take your necklace and adjust it so that the base of the necklace fits this dot. So once we have that together, I'm going to try to keep it there without moving. Once we have that together, we're going to put dot there. Take one of our dots and we're going to put it right here. This is going to be the center front. Whenever you're working with a bodice sloper, for a blouse, or you're taking measurements, knowing where your center front is going to be very, very important. You don't want to sew your garment together and then you try to put the buttons on and close it, and it's not, you can't even get the front closed because you didn't make sure that your center front of the pattern was matching your center front. And that's where that width comes in. But you're also going to need it for your length, because that's going to determine where's the bust line, where's the waistline, where's your high hip and low hip. Another place where you're going to put the dots is right where your necklace ends. So a pattern, the neck starts, the shoulder of a pattern starts where your neck meets your shoulder. And that is going to be wherever this chain rests naturally, put the chain on, that is where you're going to put the dot. Now, every outfit is not going to start here, but you want to know where that spot is, because you want to know what your shoulder width is. That's part of width too. But knowing where the base of your neck is very important. Also, you want to put a dot in your back. So if you reach around the back of your neck, there's going to be a bone there. I don't know what that bone is called. I know this is called the clavicle bone. I don't know what this one back here is. But you want to know, you want to pick a spot. So you want to feel where your chain is. Loosen up your chain and feel where that chain rests. Where that chain rests on that bone, that's where you want to put the dot. Because you want to make sure that when you have your back length, that it is consistent from one project to the next, or from one measurement to the next measurement. But say you measure, you forgot, I don't know what my back length is. So you measure it, you start up here. And then the next day you're like, oh, what's my back measurement? And then you put the dot, then you take your tape measure and you start maybe down here. That could be a 2-inch difference. That will make a huge difference in how your pattern or your garment is going to fit on you. So you want to make sure that you move around. Where does that chain rest? And you want to put your dot right underneath that, because we're going to go from the top, the top of that dot. That's why we use little ones. We don't want to use a big dot, because then if it's a big dot, your numbers can be off. But use a small dot. Practice finding those 4 spots: center front, shoulder, center back. And then from there, so let me give you an example of what this center front could do. So say, for example, you want to make this pattern. This pattern is not going to use the center front. So you can't use this measurement. But you're going to, what are you going to use? It has a shoulder. So you're going to use that shoulder. This is your shoulder. This is your center front. You're going to say, what is the front length measurement? It's going to be from your shoulder or your neck down to your waist. So once you've properly identified where your waist is, you can take your tape measure from your shoulder and measure down to your waist. And then take that measurement and look on your pattern. From your shoulder to your waist, what's that number? If it's 1 inch off, then you know that you have to make adjustments to fix that inch. So you're working on this pattern here. This pattern is going to use this measurement right here. So from her neck down to wherever this waist is going to be, you want to know what's that number on here, and then you want to measure from yourself to your waist. So that is why knowing these 4 locations, starting here, knowing where they are when it comes to your body is very important, because the circumference of your neck is going to be different from the next person. The shoulder, you can have broad shoulders, you can have narrow shoulders, you can have sloping shoulders. All that is going to play into how your garment fits, okay? Measuring your neck circumference. This is not measuring your neck circumference. This is not going to do anything for you unless you're making a turtleneck. Okay, I'm gonna take that back. Unless you're making a turtleneck, or a tie. This is not work. This is not the circumference. Remember, it's where this chain lies. Even in the back, you don't want to do this. You want to measure that line. If you don't have a flexible ruler or measuring partner, it's best if you can have someone do this for you and do it together in a mirror. Then I suggest drawing with a washable marker, and then starting from your 1 dot, measure that line, find that. Let me scooch up a little bit right here. Should have worn a different shirt. But say this is where this is where my mark, this is where my center front is, but let's use this for the sake of the video. Then I would put this here on my dot, and then I would lay this across the chain. Right? See that? Right? With the chain. Boom. And I would mark it. So that, because when you do a pattern, you're only working with half. And this is, if you have this right, you're going to have this right. And then you also need it for the back. From that center back along the chain to that neck measurement. And that is going to be on your back pattern, that little swoop that's on the top of the bodice, that's this number right here. So that's it for this video. I'm trying to keep it short. Stay tuned for the next video. My goal is to work our way top down. If you live in Rochester, you can come over to my studio. I love my studio. But you can come over to my studio. We'll get together and we'll do your measurements. Write them all down. We'll go from the top all the way down. If you're just saying, hey, dresses and shirts, then we'll do from the top all the way down to your hip. If you're just sewing, I wouldn't even get into pants. I don't even take your pants measurements unless you want to make pajama pants. But you know, until you get these measurements up here, the last thing you want to do is try to deal with a crotch measurement. You drive yourself bonkers. So there's two things you can do. You can either set time with me virtually to go over your measurements, but you're going to have to be comfortable showing your body on camera with me and doing those measurements and doing them properly. Or you can come to my studio in Chai and come into my studio, and then we can do your measurements together. I will show you how to get your measurements, and we'll document them, and then you can be on your way. So www.savvy-sewing.com. Start working with me, or stay tuned to the next video in your email box. This is Shanice, and I'm signing off. Happy sewing!